Greetings, welcome to the Metal Book Tavern, and today we're having a book haul video. Here's how I approach book hauls. I usually wait till I have around from 9 to 12 books. So the first book over here is Freedom to be Free by Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt is a German philosopher from the 20th century. In this book we have 3 essays. These essays are Labor, Work, Action, Freedom and Politics, a Lecture, and Freedom to be Free. I'm filming on May 6, 2023, and I read this book last week in 2 days. This book has a lot of good social and philosophical ideas, although it's kinda hard to perceive this book without writing down the important quotes, so I need to read this book again to dive deeper. I need to have a paper and a pen and write down things. Oh, by the way, I like this edition. This book is by Penguin Random House, and Penguin Random House has this good edition called Great Ideas. I have also The Power of Words by Simone Weil. She's a French philosopher. This is how it looks. It's very small. You can carry these in your pocket. You can easily carry it around. So in this edition you have a lot of thinkers and their essays. So you have here ideas by Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. That would be an interesting one to read. You have also Niccolo Machiavelli. You have Friedrich Nietzsche, Virginia Woolf, George Orwell, Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and what else? Albert Camus, more Hannah Arendt. And you also have Soren Kierkegaard, Fear and Trembling. I already have that book, although in a different edition. Immanuel Kant, John Locke, William Shakespeare, and more Virginia Woolf and George Orwell, Charles Dickens, and so on. There are 120 of these essays. I mean collections of essays. I like this. This one took a long time to read. This one took 2 days. I think one of the reasons it was kind of hard for me to read, not only because of the ideas and how Hannah Arendt wrote them, but also because this is translated from German. English isn't the original language of this book. The deal is that I prefer reading books that aren't originally in English in Russian, but lately I have been buying books in English because I have no other choice. I would have missed out on a lot of books if I didn't buy books in English. Next book I did not intend to buy originally. I just found it in a bookstore. It was very cheap, and I thought I already knew this story from Disney adaptations and the Once Upon a Time TV show, and I'd like to get to know the source material. Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. You've probably seen the Disney adaptations or non-Disney adaptations. You've probably seen Once Upon a Time, great show, at least for the first 3 seasons. I'm not a huge fan of the 4th one and onward because I thought the 4th one was completely... In Russian it's высосана из пальца, it's sucked from the finger, it's completely fake, it's completely... in a way made up in the worst way possible. I mean, the first 3 seasons were compelling, they were very interesting. And so you have this guy named Peter Pan, the boy who refuses to grow up. And the story starts when he visits the Darling family to take their 3 children, Wendy, John and Michael, to Neverland Island. In Neverland they are friends with a local tribe and mermaids, and they fight pirates. John and Michael join the Lost Boys. This is the company of Peter Pan, and Wendy is sort of their mother. It's very surprising to me that all ladies in the book, be Tinkerbell, Tiger Lily, and Wendy herself, and even the mermaids, they are all in love with Peter. Like as if he's some kind of a rock star. This reminds me of The Witcher, because nearly every female character had a huge crush on Geralt. But since this is a children's book, and Peter sees these ladies more of a mother figure, you know one thing all Peter Pan adaptations and the source material have in common, despite having the differences? In nearly every story, Peter Pan is a massive jerk. Even the author himself points that out, that his great feature is his cockiness. I'm not joking, this was what was written in the book. I hate Peter Pan, to be honest. I hate the character. The story is very compelling, but I hate Peter. I hate Tinkerbell too. Okay, so I own this Macmillan's Library edition of Hans Christian Andersen's Best Fairy Tales. I really like this edition. I like how it's hardcover. I like this very much. I like these golden things. How it's called in English, sorry, I don't know. And I saw there were more of these Macmillan's Collector's Library editions in the bookstore, and I thought I could get more. The deal is that when you think of Hans Christian Andersen, you think of other fairy tale writers from Denmark's neighboring country, and I got myself Grimm's Fairy Tales. I want to point out how different are these books in size. Here you can see that Hans Christian Andersen's book is very thin, while this one is very thick, and that's because this one has a dense paper. This book has 441 pages. You can see how thin it is. It has a quite thin paper, while this one has a very thick paper. It's very thick. And this one has pages. Let me check out the amount of pages. This one has 387. You've definitely heard the stories of Snow White, Hansel and Gretel, Rumpelstiltskin, the Little Red Riding Hood. Who else? Let me check out. You probably recognize these. Rapunzel, anyway, who? Tom Thumb, and Cinderella. Oh, by the way, Cinderella in German is Aschputtel, and in this edition, Cinderella is literally Aschputtel. They didn't translate it into English, Aschputtel. Now, the next book I did not intend to read. I have been already familiar with the author. I read his book in 2021, but I had mixed feelings about that one, and I didn't think I'd read his other books. But then, in the first half of 2023, I started watching a lot of the book Leo. Leonie is a Dutch booktuber, also making videos in English, and she had this book and she read it and she described it so well, and I thought I'd like to read this book. I'd like to give this author another chance, and so I bought that book and I already read it, and the book is Sapiens. I actually wanted this edition, and then after I bought this book I found it, but on the other hand I like this edition. It's so small and it's unique. I like it, and it's soft touch. Okay, the first book I read by Yuval Noah Harari was 21 Lesson for 21st Century. This is one of the most controversial books I've ever read. One of the reasons so is because Harari's imagining of the future resembles Black Mirror a lot. And those of you who have seen Black Mirror know that it's a very dark show. It's very thrilling and surprising. Here how unique it looks. But after reading this book, I am thinking of giving this one another chance. I'd like to read this eventually. And I definitely want to read Homo Deus. I've seen it in the bookstore and I definitely am going to get it eventually. I'm not ready for that one yet, but I will. Huge thanks for Leonie. She made me reconsider Sapiens. Next two books are in Georgian, which is surprising because nearly all books I own are either in Russian or in English. So I was simply walking throughout the bookstore and I saw this book. I just liked the edition, and then I remembered that when I was around 11-12 years old I tried to read this book in Georgian, but back then my Georgian skills weren't as great as they are now. And I decided to give this book another chance, and the book is Gremi, Grandma, Iliko, and Ilarioni by Nodar Dumbadze, and in English they translated it as Grandma, Iliko, Ilarioni, and me. Me, for some reason, is the last. Yes, English translation of this book exists. Like my supervisor said, this book doesn't have that much of a plot. This is a more atmospheric read. You read the book and you simply read about the everyday life of the boy named Zuriko, who is an orphan and who lives with his grandmother, Olga, and he is friends with these two neighbors, Iliko and Ilarioni. And each chapter is a separate story where the main character deals with things and he tries to solve them. This is a very slowly read. If I manage to finish this, this is going to be the first book that I read fully in Georgian, which is originally written in Georgian. Kinda progressive. Now, another book in Georgian is originally in English, but I did not like the English copy, not only because it was very pricey for me, but also because the edition itself sucked. It was too heavy and the pages were too weird. And I read the first page in Georgian and I was like, I can read this. Before I name you this book, I'm going to show you the cover and you have to guess it by the cover. Yeah, this is Just Kids by Patti Smith. So Patti Smith is a rock star. She was popular around 60s or 70s. Fact about me, I discovered I am pretty much interested in that time period, 60s, 70s, and I'm definitely interested in rock music, and this book revolves around these topics, and I'd love to read this. And I'd like to listen to music by Patti Smith. I hope I like it. Oh, speaking of the rock music and the 70s, this isn't the only book in this video that deals with these topics. I will get to the next one a little bit later. Okay, so books in Georgian are over, and the next one is The Letters of J.R.R. Tolkien, with the assistance of Christopher Tolkien and edited by Humphrey Carpenter. Sorry, I didn't pronounce that well right away. In short, this book is a collection of letters J.R.R. Tolkien wrote to his fans, to his close ones, and his literary agents. This edition is very floppy and it's soft touch, but I really don't like the font, because I think if you use the Microsoft Word or Google Docs, there's this button called B where the font becomes more thick, and I don't like the font. And I also dislike how the font is very small. Compare this to the font from HarperCollins editions. Oh yeah, speaking of this, this is the only book from Tolkien in English that I own, which isn't by HarperCollins. This is from Houghton Mifflin. And this is so weird because I got used to HarperCollins edition. Right now I'm not in the mood for the letters. I am in the process of reading Return of the King, but I would love to read this. This seems to be a very interesting read. Now, speaking of rock stars, the next book is The Rockstar's Guide to Life. The 10 Commandments in their own words. This book doesn't seem to have an author, an official author. Who wrote this? This is edited by Ted Kessler. Okay, so multiple musicians, rock stars, shared their ideas of life and they gave some advice to people. One thing I find it weird is that this book includes Ed Sheeran and 50 Cent. Spoiler, they are not rock stars. If you watched my reading vlog, you'll see that I got the book in that vlog. And I'm going to read this book in a separate reading vlog because I want to go through this book on the camera and discuss some of the comments made by the musicians. This book also features a comment by Lars Ulrich, and there is something to discuss. Not in this video, but in the vlog. This is a very floppy book. I like this edition, it's very beautiful. I like how it opens. I think it's kind of obvious that I'm a huge metal nerd. I listen to it on a daily basis. And those of you who have seen my channel probably know that I'm a huge Blind Guardian fan. And yeah, this is what happens when you listen to them too much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Crucible by Arthur Miller. This is the inspiration for the Blind Guardian song Deliver Us From Evil from their latest album The God Machine, and to be honest, I did not consider reading this at all. I wasn't interested, but I simply entered the bookstore, I saw it, and I was thinking, should I get it or not? Should I get it? Do I let these guys influence my reading list too much? And then I was like, yes, I wanted this. This is very thin, this is very small, I want it. I want it now. At the moment, as for May 2023, 20 books from my bookshelf, including the series, are all the inspirations for Blind Guardian songs, including this one too. Peter Pan is also, but I didn't count that because Peter Pan is too independent. I mean, he's very popular, he has a lot of adaptations, and he was there before I knew this band existed, so this doesn't count. The last book sung by Hansa Kirsch to me, I don't think so. I'm considering getting myself the Blade Runner book by... who was the author? I think it was Philip Dick, right? The original title of that book is Do Androids Dream of Electric Ship or something. I'm glad they changed it to the Blade Runner because the original title is unpronounceable to me. The story of how the small community of Salem is steered into madness by superstition, paranoia, and malice, culminating in a violent climax, is a savage attack on the evils of mindless persecution and the terrifying power of false accusations. This book was also mentioned in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Also, this is the first Penguin Modern Classic edition that I own. Now, last but not least, this is a series. I know this probably isn't very wise to buy the second book before I even read the first one, but I like this edition so much, and I went through a few pages and I read a little bit about the book and I decided to give it a chance. There are 4 books, even though on the cover it says the trilogy, but I want to give them a chance all the same. All 4 books. And this is the Neuromancer series by William Gibson. Here's the first one, Neuromancer, and the second one, Count Zero. This is officially also named the Sprawn series. William Gibson was also one of the authors mentioned in Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. So here you have 80s sci-fi, the books that had very important influence on cyberpunk genre. This is said to have been an influence on the Matrix films. The first one is really good. I didn't like the second and third one that much. I also saw the book Leonie reading this, the exact same edition. She wasn't fond of the books, but I am ready to take the risk. I'm interested. I just like these editions so much. I'm definitely getting the third one and the fourth one. Last but not least, here are books that I borrowed. So here's the first one. This is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Just like Just Kids by Patti Smith, this revolves around rock music in the 70s, although here you have the perspective of the musicians themselves. The entire book is written in the form of interview. And you have this girl named Daisy Jones, a singer, and the band called The Six. Their paths cross and they make successful music, and eventually they disband, and each member tells the story of what led to the disbanding. I like it very much. I'm already halfway through. I just don't like this edition. I don't like this at all. The good thing is that this isn't my copy, and I do want to own my own copy, and I'm definitely getting myself a different edition. And the last book is that I'm quitting. I didn't like it, is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And I read the first 100 pages and I got bored. I didn't like it that much. I'm not going back to it. I just don't care about it at all. I noticed that there isn't a single book in Russian because I didn't find the right book in Russian for myself, unfortunately. And those that I do find interesting, they are way too expensive. The next book haul definitely has to have books in Russian. Anyway, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. What are the books that you purchased? Let me know down in the comments. See you next time. Goodbye.